just can't win. As long as we keep our army close to the coast, we'll keep getting resupplied and we'll fight forever. We'll fight till we keep our colonies.
Greetings and salutations. My name is Coach Thornberry. I'm a high school history teacher from the U.S. state of Georgia. In the last video, we looked at the foreign support that the new United States had to gain in order to win the American Revolution. We also looked at some of the battle strategies of George Washington. In this video, we will look at 3 decisive American victories that occurred in 3 crucial battles in the American Revolution. It's not often that the standards ask us to look at the geography of battles, but when they do, it's one of my favorite topics to get into. We are still looking at Standard 4. Analyze the ideological, military, social, and diplomatic aspects of the American Revolution. Specifically, we're looking at Standard D. Investigate the role of geography at the Battles of Trenton, Saratoga, and Yorktown. Our essential vocab is the Battle of Trenton, the Battle of Saratoga, the Battle of Yorktown, and the Treaty of Paris, 1783. George Washington recognized the limitations the Continental Army faced. When the Continental Army engaged the British, Washington intended to preserve his forces, prolong the war, and wear down the enemy's will to fight above everything else. Washington knew the best way to defeat the British would to prolong the war to where they no longer had resources to fight the war. Remember, they were still in debt from the French and Indian War a decade earlier. The turning point battles of Trenton, Saratoga, and Yorktown were all more decisive battles than Washington's normal strategy. Geography played a significant role in each one of these battles. In all 3, rivers were especially important in the Americans' ability to trap the British forces. Early in the war, Washington engaged the British in quick strikes and then retreated in an attempt to overcome the poor training of the American forces and boost morale. This is illustrated by Washington's crossing of the Delaware River in the subsequent Battle of Trenton in December of 1776. In the fall of 1776, Washington and the Continental Army retreated out of New York and were forced to cross to the Pennsylvania side of the Delaware River. Washington carefully planned the secret attack and led approximately 2,400 men across the icy Delaware River on Christmas night, 1776. The ability to surprise the Hessian mercenaries camped at Trenton relied on a swift river crossing. The Battle of Trenton was a much-needed American victory. The Americans killed or captured 1,000 Hessian mercenaries, with only 500 escaping. The Americans only had 6 casualties. Washington used the poor weather conditions and geographic challenge of a river crossing to carry out the surprise attack in Trenton. The crossing and victory at the Battle of Trenton gave confidence to the Americans after a series of defeats. The Hessians were caught off guard for several reasons. First, the Hessians incorrectly thought the Delaware River at their camp at Trenton was a barrier against attack. Instead, the colonists used it as a vehicle. Second, the Christmas holiday was considered an unlikely time for a military operation. Third, the storm on Christmas night caused the Hessians to decrease their surveillance, thinking an attack was not likely. The Battle of Saratoga was another turning point battle in the Revolutionary War where geography contributed to a U.S. victory. The British plan was to take New York and drive a wedge between New England and the Mid-Atlantic. The British believed dividing the United States could end the revolution. British General Burgoyne led his forces south down the Hudson River. General Horatio Gates was the U.S. commander ready to engage Burgoyne as his army moved south from Canada. Due to a large supply convoy, the British slowly made their way south. The Americans were steadily building fortifications with cannons on the high ground around Saratoga, giving the Americans control of the area. General William Howe was supposed to lead another force north from New York City. The coordinated movement was meant to secure New York for the British. Instead, Howe attacked Philadelphia, disregarding the British plan. When Burgoyne's British forces approached Gates' army, the Battle of Saratoga ensued. After weeks of fighting, Burgoyne was trapped by the Americans and forced to surrender in October 1777. Controlling the high ground at Bemis Heights with fortifications at the Hudson River geographically contributed to the American victory at Saratoga. The American victory at Saratoga is considered a turning point in the American Revolution because it assured the French monarchy that the Americans had a chance of winning. The French had been reluctant to openly agree to an alliance with the Americans for fear that victory was not possible. The victory at Saratoga was just what Benjamin Franklin needed in his European negotiations for alliance and support of the American cause. So as strategically important as Saratoga was, the biggest accomplishment of the Battle of Saratoga was probably gaining the support of the French monarchy. After the decisive victory at Saratoga and the resulting Franco-American alliance, the British adjusted their battle plan to have General Charles Cornwallis move the war to the southern states. The idea was to separate these colonies from revolutionary forces in the north. Cornwallis immediately succeeded in a series of British victories, but the Americans were able to prevent a complete victory in the South. Cornwallis pursued the Americans into Virginia, but was met with heavy resistance. Wishing to maintain communication with Great Britain by sea, General Cornwallis retreated to the coastal town of Yorktown on the Chesapeake Bay. While awaiting for the British fleet, his forces were surrounded by the combined French and American armies. In July 1781, Washington began moving his army towards the south from Rhode Island. The French Navy arrived at Chesapeake Bay to block the British from escaping by sea. The American forces surrounded the British by land at Yorktown. After 3 weeks of fighting, Cornwallis surrendered to Washington at Yorktown in October of 1781. The American Revolution concluded with the Battle of Yorktown in Virginia. Again, this decisive battle was influenced by the geography of the area. Geography contributed to the overall victory at Yorktown. The French Navy was also able to cut off the escape route the British would have had needed to prolong the war.
You colonists might have won this round, but you're not free. We'll be back in 1814 to burn down the White House.
Wow, that was oddly specific. I wonder if that was some foreshadowing. In the next video, we will look at the often overlooked contributions of Black Americans and women in the American Revolution. We will also look at the 1783 Treaty of Paris that officially brought the American Revolution to an end. Until next time, keep it real and take it easy.